So I need to get my desk all cleared off and get my book together and desk all cleared off and let's see, get my book. Okay, that thing had to be quiet. Good morning. Sometimes that's how I know when I'm online now, is just because it'll, you're like, yeah, the words will kind of still keep going, even though whatever. That's how I know when I'm online. Good morning, good morning. How are you? I am. So today is a good day. As you can see, sun is already beaming in my ear. In my my eye, coming in through the window, and it promises to be a magnificent day. I am so glad that you have awakened and opened your eyes on this fabulous Sunday morning. I greet you this day. Sometimes when I think about songs or, things from growing up, and if you haven't figured this out, for the first 5 or 10 minutes, I just kind of chit chat, because I know sometimes it takes people a minute in order to get here or whatever. And so I sort of chit chat about whatever is on my mind. I don't know, but sometimes I think about the songs that I used to hear when I was, the old school songs, whether it's Lionel Richie's Hello, like I long to see the sunshine in your hair, the sunlight in your hair, or the ideas of just when you wake up, what's the energy like? Who are you seeing? What are they saying? Is it good morning, beautiful? And if nobody said that to you today, good morning, beautiful. Hey, handsome. Hey, good morning to you. I am so glad to just have you, like, your eyes on me and me feeling you. I am so, so honored and so glad to have all of that. This morning, let me tell you, this morning, when I got up. Now, my little dog has been waking up earlier. Animals are interesting, because once you get them trained, like if you set your alarm clock and you get them trained to getting up at a particular time, they wake up, right? And they don't let you oversleep, because it's like, okay, it's time for, it's time for me, it's time for us to go out or whatever. So they start waking you up. Well, my little dog, she kind of likes to push the envelope. So whereas the alarm for me, my phone, was going off at 4:30, she starts getting up at 4:20. Like, I'm gonna sit here and anticipate. And she'll sit there on the side of the bed on the floor, and she'll shake, because she knows the bells around her neck will shake. So she'll shake, and then she'll sit there, and if I even slightly move, then she starts doing a dance like, ooh. So when I'm saying good morning, beautiful, to you, it's because every time I open my eyes, my little dog is there celebrating. And it's not cute. It's not cute when okay, so this morning she was, I think I looked at the clock and it said 4:05. And I'm thinking, not funny, right? Not funny. And so, but I will tell you that I fed into it, because for the last, a couple of days this past week, when she started getting all excited before the 4:30 time slot, she getting all excited and she dancing around like, oh, come on, we gotta go, we gotta go. And then I go down before I even put on my clothes, and I let her out the door, and she goes out there using the bathroom, and then like, come on, come on. And I'm thinking, no, heifer, it is not time. So this morning I had to, like, get back over there on your bed, making the little gesture to her, because she can't hear me, and I got to get her straight, because it's 4:30. I'm not trying to have her set the time for me. So And isn't that ironic, right? I didn't even think about that in connecting it to that we are supposed to talk about time today. So but yeah, they are a trip. And so this morning I get up and so what I do is first thing in the morning, honestly, y'all, half the time I ain't even trying to wash my face at 4:30. I'm trying to pull on my clothes, and usually I try to set them out the night before. I pull on something to work out in, and I go put on my tennis shoes and I go outside and I start my workout. And this morning when I go on, I actually went to sleep last night. I don't know what time. I got into bed at 10:30 and I read for a little bit. And so this morning when I got online, Rhonda, she comes on at 5 a.m. I'm the first person on there. And so she's talking about that she didn't get in bed last night until 1 a.m. So I knew she was dragging, right? Because it's hard. It's hard when you just went to sleep to get up at 4, 3 hours later, and then be, entertain folks. So I requested to go on live on Instagram with Rhonda, with no makeup on my face, no hair combed, because I ain't even comb my hair, nothing. And I'm outside exercising in the dark. And so I talked to Rhonda Crowder on Instagram, 4:30 this morning. Hey, Derek, there's my brother. Yeah, 4:30 this morning. And it was good. It was good. Cause whatever, we gotta, that's one of the things that at times it's kind of like, when you see birds flying in formation, they don't just fly in formation because that's, you know, because they studied it or something. But what you do is you see them and they fly in formation, and there's a current that's created with their wings. And so while one bird may be in there cutting through the air with no current on it, it cuts through the air, and that front bird is working hard. And so that's why you see as they fly, that front bird will fall back into the second slot and the next bird will come up. And they will keep doing that rotation, changing off who's doing the lead in order that all of them might benefit from the current that is created by all of them. So it's not exhausting any one of them, but rather flying in formation helps them so that they can do that. And so sometimes we have to help one another, and I think that I will say it like this: if we never talk to people about the responsibility, not just to themselves, but to community. So to family, to community, to one another, sometimes it means that we figure out how to make the momentum that is created by one benefit another. So if at times we got to step in and assist, right? You know how in volleyball, one of the techniques that we learn is you may have somebody, even in basketball, or any other sports, you may have to assist somebody. And if people are not in sports, and they don't know that, like, okay, if I tip the ball, if I hit the ball up, then somebody else either spikes it or does an assist. If I go and I throw up, I do a ball, I shoot a basket, and it ain't quite going in, that other person comes in and pushes it into the basket. When we work together, we all win. And that's really what this is all about. And so if we have not, sometimes people don't receive those messages, right? They don't receive the messages about what it means to provide assistance and how important that is. Sometimes what we see is only the negative because we're surrounded by so much negativity. And so sometimes we've got to speak to that or show that, right? And then, the idea of playing it forward, I think, is really important too. So not just lose the fact that somebody helped me out or somebody did something for me, but then that I can turn around and play that forward, I think is extremely helpful. And here's the other thing too, because I have this happen to me all the time. I have people that'll say to me stuff about people who are so terrible or inconsiderate. And what I try to do is I try to bear witness to the fact that there's a lot of good people in the world. I actually think that the truth is that most people are good. Most people are good, law-abiding, helpful, loving people with families and concerns and all of that stuff. I believe that about most people. But what we do is we focus in on those who do not, and then we believe that to be the truth. And so it's really powerful when we can bear witness to the fact that people are really fundamentally good at heart, and to challenge the narrative that we've been given. So, like I was saying, I got on live with Rhonda this morning. And then when we came back for checkout, we talked about the ways in which we create narratives or campaigns against certain people and certain ideas that is really fear mongering. And we don't recognize that it for what it is. We believe the hype. The hype says one thing, and then the reality is something different. The other day, she pointed out that on Twitter, somebody did this campaign, and they asked, not a campaign, but it's just an honest question. She asked, it was a woman, I can't think of her name right off, but she asked the question, what did you learn about Black people when you were growing up, And it was really interesting, the things that people shared, whether they learned them directly through their own family or they learned them from someplace else, that sometimes people are just operating off of the information that they've been taught or they received. And they never challenged it to see if it was actually true, never challenged the veracity of the information that they were receiving. And so they believe it. Now, I will tell you too that I have learned some untruths in my life. So one of the untruths that I learned, say for instance, was when I was in elementary school and I said something about Africa, and my teacher told me, girl, they still swinging from trees and living in huts and all of this stuff. Why would you want to go there to that place? And come to find out, like, where you get that stuff from. But to teach somebody that, and to have somebody going through life even repeating that or thinking that to be true, can be very corrosive and disingenuous and, yeah, ill-informed, all of those things. And so we handicap people when we just kind of make these, assumptions or summary judgments or whatever have you. We do handicap people. So today we're talking about this idea about time. And again, I'm trying to say every time that I am working out of, or, this is being inspired by a book called Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Miss. And we are meandering our way. I'm saying our way because Stephanie most mornings will join me, but she will be out of town until probably Wednesday or Thursday, something like that. But meandering our way through this wonderful book and talking about, as we go, the different chakras and how those chakras affect us. And as we talk about these things, just seeing what it is in here for us so that we can learn how to be better stewards with the bodies and with the health that we have. So in that, today we are supposed to be embarking in this section about time. And so what's really interesting to me is that since I'm saying here today that we never challenge the messages that we receive, we too never challenge this question of time that we also have. There is there is this thing like race conscious beliefs that we have adopted about time. We accept them as true, and we go around and repeat them and teach them without ever really challenging what it is that we are told. So now when we hear people say that 50 is the new 30 or 35 or something like that, I don't know, but or 40 is the new something, it becomes this thing, because what we've learned is that to be 50 or 60 is to have one foot in the grave, or to be decrepit, or or unable to function. And so we see that there are so many people that are turning that notion on its head, that now we're trying to redefine what it means, what aging means. And hopefully I'm in that same thing. So there is a part of us that needs to recognize that we can embrace um this process of aging without looking at it like it's an old piece of stale rye bread. It to bring it to life and to bring some life into it, to challenge the notions that we've been given. Because just because somebody before you said it or somebody experienced it doesn't mean that it has to be true for you. And so a lot of times what we don't recognize is how much of what we believe we bring into our everyday life. So in this particular section, Carolyn starts off with this notion of what we believe about time. Now, I like to put this stuff in perspective. Y'all know, if you've been watching me for any amount of time, I like to put this stuff in perspective, in my own perspective, right? And and we have a certain notion about how long something takes, right? If we pray for something like, oh, thank you, God, for this stuff with my car turning out above and beyond what I could ever imagine. I thank you for the perfect transportation, the perfect vehicle for me. And I thank you now, right? As I am saying that, a lot of times we have this notion that it's going to take a particular amount of time. So I will tell y'all that so we pray prayers and we think that it's going to take a particular amount of time. Something has gotta, like we got a notion that everything takes this long period of time. So let me tell you a little bit about how I think about stuff like this, how I tend to operate, right? That time collapses, that time can be one of those things that is a subjective experience, in the sense that it doesn't necessarily have to be what I believe it to be. Sometimes times just, like I can have an experience, especially in meditation, where I'm sitting for like in 30 seconds, I can receive like a whole download of an entire book in 30 seconds, because the download is instant. It's almost like that scene in the Matrix where I love the Matrix, in case you don't know that or didn't know that, but it's almost like that scene in the Matrix where Neo asks Trinity, can you fly that? He was talking about a helicopter. Can you fly that? And she says, give me a second. She whips out her phone and she says, Tank, I need a program for a B2, B12 helicopter or something like that. And then her eyes blink for a second and she says, all right, let's go, right? Instant download. Or the instant download of, I need to know how to do Kung Fu or Taekwondo. It's like instant download. We may not have at the time received the physical musculature to do what it is that we desire to do. But once you have the awareness or the knowledge of something, it's amazing the things that happen. Now, I know you are probably thinking, Sandra, that's TV. It's not reality, right? But I'm gonna tell you, I have received and am receiving information constantly, even as I talk to you. And so all of a sudden it can be, I was talking to Jayla, my niece, yesterday about transitions, especially transitions in songs and music. And I was telling her about how Michael Jackson was like the master of making a transition in the midst of a song. And I sat there, like, as we were listening to one of my favorite songs is You Rock My World, right? And as we're going through and I'm grooving to this, You Rock My World, and then it's like, doom, doom. It's like there's this transition in the music. There's a shift. And so I started talking to her about the artful ways in which these shifts happen, how it takes an about turn on a particular riff, and then it goes on, and then it goes back into the original. I was just, it's so good. I was telling her about how it was so good. And then of course my niece is Jayla is just like everything Hamilton fan, right? And so when I asked her about any obscure facts that she had about Hamilton, she was like, oh, let me tell you about how they riff on this song. And let me tell you about the transitions on that song. So it was almost like she took information that she might not have ever heard about before and then started applying it to the different scenarios that go on. Sometimes all it takes is a new insight or a new piece of information. And then the clock, it's like, the light bulb goes on and you're like, oh, I do have that notion. So when Carolyn Myss in this book, she starts talking about, she says in here, I'm on 175 for those of you who are following along. She says, the stronger our spirits become, the less authority linear time can exercise in our lives. So when we talk about linear time, we're talking about how we normally move through time, like, minute after minute, second after second, minute after minute, that kind of thing. We move through this thing linearly, right? We walk through it like we're walking through space. But the wonderful thing that we know is that God, this thing called God or spirit, doesn't exist in time. Right? Time is irrelevant. So we have learned that the same thing, how we perceive this thing of time is this slow moving thing, but everything, say for instance, everything is now, everything is happening in the moment for spirit. And so what happens is because we believe in time, we are giving it the power to say that it has to happen in a succession or a series of things rather than expecting that it happens now. Let me tell you about one of the first times I experienced this wonderfulness, right? I was again in the situation where I was needing a car. And I was on the radio. I was doing WJMO at the time, WJMO 1490 AM. That's what it was. I was doing that talk show. And I remember going in there one night and I was talking about how I wanted a car, a new to me car, right? I needed a new to me car. And I was like putting it out here and I was like, y'all, I'm praying for a car. And this is what I said. This is the caveat. And I don't want to have to pay a dime for it. That's the way I said it. I wanted a car that was new to me and I didn't want to have to pay a dime for it. So that was on a Sunday evening. I remember this, right? It's on a Sunday evening. And so I put it out there. I told everybody and, just left it just there. Boom, right? Boom, there it is. So now, people will have their judgments about what it is that you ask for. They got their judgments about what you're praying for, blah, 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 blah. I know because I've done it, right? I've done it to other people as well. Because you sitting there and you thinking like, you on what, right? Um, I've had it done to me, and I know I've like done it. So like, say for instance, I get people who will tell me, "Oh, I'm praying for $5 million," right? And you know, there's this part like, well, what do you need the $5 million for? You know, I'm just kind of trying to. So it's not that I'm thinking that you cannot have it, but sometimes what we do is we desire things, we desire stuff, like say for instance this money, but what you really want is not the money. It's sometimes it's not the money. We think it's the money, but that's not even what it's about. So sometimes you got to get clear. This is the way I've always seen it. You got to get clear on what it is that you desire. Is it that you want $5 million, or is it that you're worried about how people perceive you? Is it about where you live? Is what you need a new house, or is what you need, you know, blah 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 blah, right? So say for instance, I get really clear about some of the things that are important to me. So, you know, I'm right now, I've got the challenge that my car was in a accident the other day, and I need to replace my car. I have a transportation outside. I got a nice bike. I mean, I could have got a rent a car. Yeah, I could have got a rent a car, but you know, I'm like, for what? It's like, I mean, I don't, sometimes right now since COVID, there are days that I don't go out of the house. So it's like, it was not a big deal for me. So, but yes, I want my car back in my garage, or something better. I want this to be resolved. I want it to work out. Anyway, I had gone on the radio and I said that I wanted a car and I didn't want to have to pay a dime for it. Now, I wasn't listening to anybody's judgments about my desires or anything else like that. I put it out there and I left it. Boom, like drop it. Bam. That was it. So I go home, and one day passed. I'm not even sitting up there, you know, tripping about it. I'm not even saying prayers over and over again. I'm not saying, "Oh God, did you hear me?" Blah blah blah. I'm not worried about it. I put it out there. Boom, I drop it. I forget about it. One day passes, 2 day passes, 3 days pass. Thursday, right? Thursday. Here's Thursday. I get a call, and I get a call from Simon. Simon is a wonderful light. He is a guy who, back in the day, I used to go to Black Professional Association meetings, right? Because just because you know, I like hanging out with professional folks, getting around people, and you know, this idea of philosophy and exchange of ideas, this turns me on, right? Whether you know it or not. So I'm always looking for what I call intelligent or deep people to talk to, not know-it-alls. I don't like people who are stuck in their thinking. I like malleable, conversational kind of stuff, right? And so I'm always looking for that, like people who can question even the question, right? I love that kind of stuff. So I used to go to Black professional meetings, and there were some people there that I used to love to talk to. Anyway, on one particular meeting, we were at the Caramel House, I do believe it was. Um, there was a woman who showed up, and she was there promoting the Cleveland International Program. CIP, Cleveland International Program. And Cleveland International Program, what they did was is that they hosted other professionals from different countries to come into this country and work. It's almost like an exchange program, but for professionals. And so on this particular occasion, she was coming because she says, now that we've opened up this program, we are accepting applicants from all over the diaspora, including Africa. And we don't have enough host families or host families that look like them to welcome them into this country. So we wanted to get some Black professionals involved in the program. And I'm thinking to myself, I live in the hood. I don't know that they want to come to my house and all of this stuff. And she was like, well, you know, you don't know where they live. I mean, the hood may be perfect for them. So why don't you just try it? So I agreed to, right? So I no sooner than I offered to be in this program, it was, you know, and the funny thing was, is it was like, you know, I didn't have no bomb job or anything like that. I was, I don't even know what my situation was, but I was like, okay, let me try this. Cause I had a attic space that I could do. And, I was like, I got a extra room. I could feed somebody, especially if, whatever, I could do that. He was going to work every day. So I was like, I didn't know if I was going to get a man or a woman anyway. So I get this call, like, can we place somebody at your house? And like, this was like turnaround, right? So I agreed on one day. Within a couple of weeks, I had gotten somebody else that got that man to come to my house, and his name was Simon. But she called me when she was getting ready to play Simon, and she says, you know what? She says, we have another man that's coming also, and both of them are from, I think one may have been from Nigeria and one from Ghana. But if you know Africa, you know that those two countries are right there next to each other. So really, the borders on those countries are fictitious because they were through colonization drawn. So sometimes you have people who may be of the Igbo tribe that may live in Ghana, and somebody in the same tribe live in Nigeria because they are right there together. And so she was like, I got two people, one coming from Ghana, one coming from Nigeria, and both of them need to be placed. But Paul, I have somebody that can take him, but it'll be 2 weeks from now. And so I just need someplace to put him temporarily. And can you accept this one to stay in your house for 3 months? I think it was. And so I was like, sure. I was thinking, I'm a single woman and I got two men from Africa coming to stay with me. Now, fortunately, I had traveled overseas. I'm telling y'all all this stuff because I think it's pertinent to the story, or is integral to the story. So fortunately, I had traveled overseas. Fortunately, in traveling overseas, I had been around African folks, right? So I don't fear monger like I see other people doing. I was like, single woman, two African men is no issue. It's not going to be any kind of issue for me, right? It's going to be, I'm gonna get these two brothers in my house, and we'll make it work, right? Um, it reminds me, this is like Slumdog Millionaire, right? In Slumdog Millionaire, one of the things that they showed is that life takes you in many different arenas, and you never know what kind of arena you're going to be in, but all of them are applicable to different things that are going to happen to you later on. When I was in Italy one day, there was a guy who I met, Kimi Dada. I don't know why I remember his name, but because it's so easy. Kimi Dada took me, and he wanted me to go to his place. He stayed in a city that was maybe about, I don't know how far away from where I was, but we had to get on a bus and go to this different city. When we got there, we walked down. It's another gated city, and beautiful brick streets, and the buildings and all of the archways and everything was just this beautiful brick. And but it was a smaller city than the Siena where I was. And so we walked down this I don't like to call it a street because it was more, it's not an alley, because it was encompassed in this archway, and you go down in this dark thing, and every whatever. So it was beautiful. But we go down there and we go into this door and we go up the steps. And when I go up the steps, we come into a larger room. And there's like a wood stove in the room. And I don't know why I'm telling you that there's a wood stove in the room, other than because when I walked in the room, there had to be anywhere from 15 to 20 African men in that room, some sitting on the floor, some on pallets, some on the couch. But the room was like I was literally stepping over guys walking into this room. and I'm the only female there. And I got nothing but love and respect, nothing but unconditional love and respect. We sat there for hours in the midst of conversation. And what Kimmy was telling me is that these people had came because Italy opened up their borders. They opened up their borders and they came there looking for work and thinking that they could find some kind of way to make a living. And what all that they found is people who were shutting doors on them and saying, hey, we don't have enough work here for our people. Sorry, but we can't help you. And so he says, I'll go to the train tracks at night. He says, and people sleep on the tracks because the tracks tend to be warm. And so they go and they sleep on the tracks. And so he says, so what I do is, he says, I go down to the tracks out at night. He says, and I just invite them back. He was like, that's what Africans do. We are about hospitality. We are about that. And so that is the image that I brought forth with me as I came back home, was all the love and the support. And I didn't care where I went. I don't care where I went. It's kind of like here, my brothers have always been the type. I grew up in a family, and if I went out at night, this was when we were younger, but if I went out at night and they saw my car someplace, they would stop and make sure I got back to my car so I could be back at home okay, right? Because they were my brothers. They covered me, which is what we learned, right? And so when I was there and I met these men all huddled up in this room, and we sat and talked for hours. They got to know me. I got to know them in that period of time. And I don't care where I went after that, there was always somebody that was saying, sister, like, sister, I know you. Sister, I honor you. And if you ever need anything, I got your back. It was always that kind of flavor. So when somebody asked me, could I take 2 Africans in the home? I was like, absolutely, right? So this is the scene at which I'm coming back to y'all with. So that Thursday, after I prayed for the car, Simon was still here in this country. Now, Paul, he stayed with me for a while, for a couple of weeks, and he went to his other host family. I didn't see Paul again, but Simon stayed with me. Not only did he stay with me, he went and stayed with another couple of host families, and then my dad hosted him for a while in his house. So Simon is still here in this country. So Simon came to me that Thursday. He was like, he called me mommy, can I come visit you? And it's like, sure. So me and Simon sitting up talking like we do, because, blah, 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 right? It was a good experience, him staying with me. Simon is ultra Catholic, though. Simon will, even before he comes into my house, he'll sit outside and he'll pray, do his rosary and all of that stuff. And then he'll come in, and then, we sit and we talk and we have coffee or whatever it is. Tea is what he likes. And so, so that Thursday, I said, he's talking to me and he's telling me, he was like, oh, I got this van and blah, blah, blah. I'm making money with this van. And he's always trying to, tell me about some money-making scheme he's got, whatever. I don't want to make it seem like it's a scheme, but, it's just like always, he always got some kind of way I can make some money, right? Anyway. So he comes to my house that Thursday and he's telling me about these vans he's trying to get. And then he says to me, he was like, he says, I got this car, and he keeps getting tickets on this car. And I said, why are you getting tickets? He was like, he was staying on Shaker Square on Southmoreland. And he said that they wouldn't give him any more garage space. So the only place he had to park this car was on the street. And he kept getting tickets. And I was like, oh. And I said, you gonna get rid of it? And he looks at me and he was like, do you need a car? Yeah, I need a car. I've been praying for a car. And he's like, he was like, it's yours. Really? I was like, really? Are you sure? Mommy, you need a car. I have a car. You get the car, right? And so I was like, well, how much do you want for it? That's what I asked. Like, how much do you want for it? He says, he was like, it's a gift. He says, you pay for the transfer. He was like, it's a gift. So when I went back the next Sunday and I told them that I had another car and I didn't pay for the car, I paid for the transfer of the title from one person to the other. That was it. I had my car just like that. Bam, 4 days, Sunday to Thursday, 4 days, and it's done, right? And so this notion, when I tell people about, I literally was praying prayers and I move out of the way because it's like, how quickly is this going to get here? So we have a notion that time is something that is that has some kind of influence or some type of impact in our life without realizing that it takes the time that you believe it's going to take. Like if I come with this notion that this is going to take me 2 weeks or it's going to take me a whole month, did I just break my thing? Yeah, if I come with this notion that it's going to take a long time, then it does take a long time. So let me, I think it's probably something that I can easily fix, but I need to put my glasses on in order to do it. So I do it after the fact. But she says, to some extent, linear time is an illusion of the physical world, tied to the physical energy of the first three chakras. In physical tasks, we need this energy, for example, when we need to take inspiration from thought to form. We run it through linear steps. Boom, 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 boom. Right? We run it through linear steps, but in terms of our belief and our ability to heal, our concept of time should be re-examined. So I remember having a conversation with somebody about what time is. And they told me, they was like, time is not really real. It's what we do is that we have measured movement. So it's almost as if the world has agreed that it takes 365 days for the earth to revolve around the sun. An arbitrary thing that may not have even been noticed in antiquity, right? But say, for instance, for Egyptians, some of the pyramids, I tell you, those pyramids are amazing. But some of those pyramids, they are built so that in the particular chamber, there is a tunnel that goes from the heavens. Basically, it opens up and you can see straight down into the chamber. And this only happens at a particular time of the year or a certain time of revolution or revolvement or something like that. It is one of those things that it's a measurement of time. And so wait a minute, I gotta increase the screen so I can see that. I'm Kimberly. Hey, Kimberly. Great story about the African brothers. I needed to hear this. Oh, girl, yes. And you know what? Sometimes I don't know why things pop into my head, but they just do. And so don't believe what people will tell you about other. As a matter of fact, what do I want to say about that? A lot of countries won't even allow American television into their country because of the violence that they see on there. It tries to normalize violence and normalize these ideas that that people are largely bad, cutthroat, or out to get you and all that stuff. And it normalizes that way of thinking. But when you go to other countries, they're not all sitting around in the house watching TV. As a matter of fact, it's not even common to have, at least not when I was there, right? I can't say that when I travel now, I'm not traveling in ways that put me in other people's homes. I travel now as a tourist. And so as a tourist, I go into a hotel. But when you travel to a person's home, the television occupied, they still were, for me, what I was seeing is people were still having 13-inch TVs. Television is not a big part of every culture's life, right? And so they don't have this notion about being fearful and afraid of other people, or that things are happening that are so bad. It is more like cellular in that they, that was my experience. And so you didn't see all of this cutthroat stuff, right? Yeah, no notion of that. And so, yes, I was perfectly safe. I mean, just all of that. Yes, I ain't got nothing bad to say. Mm-mm. So, and that's how when I talk about the goodness of people, that's how I relate. I relate based on my experience, not on what I heard somebody else say. Because what I know too is that different people bring things out in other people, right? I am not a person who naturally receives any type of aggressive anything. As a matter of fact, people normally treat me just like I am. Like, oh, this girl, I love her and I don't even know why. And it's because I love them even before they get there, right? And so that's the way that I experience people, because that's what I put out there. Now, what somebody else puts out there, I know people who they their own cyclone, right? And they draw drama to them, right? And wherever they go, that's what happens. So I don't, I don't bring that out in people. So this thing about but this thing about time is really significant because, if it's a measure of movement, right? If it's a measure of how long it takes the earth to revolve around the sun, some people didn't even relate it to it taking a year to revolve around the sun. Sometimes it took this amount of time for that light to come back into the chamber that was built, right? So Egyptians have a totally different experience of this thing called time. Although when they talk about the pyramids themselves, and this is something I used to study, is that the pyramids, the measurements of the pyramids was in alignment with the solar system. So because people spent so much time in darkness, they had a different relationship with the stars and the moon and all of that stuff. And they watch these things. And so now we use it as a measurement and we talk about it and we have this notion that it takes a long time. So if you think that it's going to take you a year to heal something, or, if somebody already tells you, oh, the average healing time on a broken leg is blah, 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 you in your mind, because you believe that now, somebody has told you that, you believe it, that means that now that's how you're operating. That's the thought form that you're operating off of. But wonder if we realize that we could collapse time or speed up time. Would it then change our experience? Why is it that we see some people that they say, oh, you'll never walk again, and they defy that? Not only do they defy it in record time. It's because some of this is based on our belief. What we believe to be true will be true. If you have the notion that it's all downhill after the age of 50, then guess what? Bye. You going down there. But if you have the idea that not only can you be vibrant and sexy through 70, as a matter of fact, it's just getting good, right? If you look at a Maya Angelou or somebody else who has really just like embraced this process of aging and recognize that there is something wonderful coming out of you, then that experience will be different for you. And so for each and every one of us, it goes back to what we believe to be true about ourselves. So healing takes as long as you believe it's going to take. I was having some issues with my side over here. And I don't know if I had told y'all about this necessarily, but I was having some issues with my side. And when I looked it up in the book, and this is not too long ago, right? When I looked it up in the book, it was talking to me about I forget what it was, but it was really talking to me about relationships. And I know that doing this work, that when you do something that is contrary to what you believe or what you know to be true, it's almost as if time speeds up, right? Because now you know better, you do better. And when you don't do better, then that means that all of a sudden things just seem to speed up. So I knew I needed to make some drastic changes in my relationships. And so what I did is because I was feeling that pain, I wasn't sure what it was, but I was like, this ain't developing into anything, right? This is going to be, you are going back to the nothingness from whence you came, right? I'm going to make some changes. And that's what I did. I was like, okay, so I needed to make some drastic changes in my relationships, and I did. And do you know what? Just like that pain, that stuff that was going on in my side, it disappeared. It went away, just gone, poof, because I was willing to do whatever it took in order to arrest the development of some kind of dis-ease setting itself up in my body, because I know better, right? And even now, I still, I'm like, I know better. When you know better, you do better. So this notion of how we should re-examine our relationship with time, I think, is just one of those things. So the illusion that healing takes a long time holds considerable authority in our culture. Now, look at all the people who stand to gain from your being sick and staying sick, your belief in sickness, right? The pharmaceutical companies stand to benefit, your doctors, your HMOs, all of these people stand to benefit from you believing in this, the way that these things work, right? Because they get to keep you dependent a lot longer. That dependency means that somebody is benefiting, somebody is getting paid. You are not any value to them when you're not sick, right? As a matter of fact, they're telling you, oh, you need to come in for a checkup, just so you can come in and verify that you are not sick or nothing is wrong with you, because they need to get some money out of you, right? They get paid when you go into the office. And then because we have set it up with their being the authority, we have set it up that sometimes all they got to do is say a word, right? Say a word. And then your mind starts to thinking about that. And then all of a sudden, what you fear, that's what Job said, what I fear has come upon me. And so it is almost like we pull things towards us based on our fear of it. Ooh, no. And so they need to get you, they need to have you in the system. Now, that is not to say that when you feel a pain, I'm not telling you to ignore it. That is not at all what I'm saying. So don't get it twisted. But until you have the ability and the capacity to do the healing work that and even me, I go into the doctor. Now, I just went to the doctor last week. And what do I tell my doctor? I tell my doctor, I said, I want a blood test. Can you give me a blood test? Oh, yeah, sure. Right. I go in there and she'll tell me, oh, you need a tetanus shot. I'm not taking a tetanus shot. Right. That's what I'm telling her. Well, according to, I don't care. Right. According to who? I don't care. I go in and I'm telling you what I'm going to do. I'm telling you what I want. Right. You can tell me what you want, but now I have to, I have to accept it or reject it, because this is a mind game. It is done unto you as you believe. This is a mind game. And so when I recognize that I have the ability to change up the trajectory of my health, then I need to be about that business and not letting somebody else tell me, oh, you need this pill, you need that pill, or dictating to me what I must do. I need to change up some stuff in my life. And you know what? I can go and pick up books. I keep pointing over my shoulder because that little rainbow book right there, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, was powerful for me. My cousin just, she called me up and she was like, I can't believe I had that book already on my shelf. And, I don't know, I must have read that book back in, whatever, the 90s or something like that. Whenever, right? Whenever. But, you have access to information that helps you to determine what it is that's causing some of the dis-ease in your body. And it does not just come out of the ethers without a cause. You are a causal agent in your life. The way that you think is causal on the things that happen. Now, that's not to say that if for the rest of your life you just have, positive thoughts and all that stuff, that you will never die. Yeah, we got to die to leave here, right? Because sometimes your time is up, in the sense that if once you accomplish what you came to accomplish, yeah, what you sticking around for, right? but you don't, this idea that somehow, we got to die at 60, or that, that is, that all, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. So this idea that it takes a long time holds considerable authority in our society, and believing it makes it true. That's what she says here. Believing it makes it true. So in the book of Genesis, she goes here, Yahweh, God, right? Whatever you choose to call him, breathed into his nostrils a breath of life, and thus man was born. By choosing to believe something, we breathe the breath of life into that belief, giving that belief authority over us. So sometimes what we're doing is we're breathing into an idea, breathing into a concept. We are giving it life. Remember, you were made in the image and likeness of that which created you, and you have the ability to give life to an idea or a thought. And that's what we do a lot of times. We birth our own issues, right? And so we give them authority. So our culture believes that even healing of trauma takes a long time. But it's so interesting because sometimes things happen in an instant, right? And so, like, say for instance, when I was I was taking that class at that church, and the woman was asking the question of how could you say that people are basically good when you see that babies get abused or babies get raped? She was like, how can you say that God is good or that people are good when you see stuff like that happening? And when I started hearing this woman give her testimony, I was like sitting up there listening to it like it's good, but I realized it was coming out of me. It was coming out of my mouth. And I hadn't even consciously given any thought to it, or that wasn't nice to say. I was like, what the hell? I heard myself talking. And when I listened to myself, I was like, oh, I heard something coming through me that I hadn't even formulated in my thinking, but it came out of my mouth. And do you know what? I healed my damn self that day. So I was able to walk forward after hearing my own story, my own summation of that stuff. I was able to walk forward and leave that rest of that stuff behind. It just dropped off. Just like I'm saying. And so time, like I was saying yesterday, as you move forward, the past is dead, right? Yesterday ended last night. It is over. It is done. If you are dragging it into today, that is you that is doing that. You're making the choice to do that. When somebody else does it for you, you could simply say, I'm done with that, right? Because I'm in the now moment. And that's what we have to do. We have to begin to take power over our thinking, over our ideas. And until we do that, until we begin to take power over the ways in which we think and what we say and all of that stuff, we will still be subject to what we did before. I'm going to lay down some new steps. I'm going to let that past fall off from me like nobody's business, right? And it only informs me to the extent that it serves to use it for a lesson, like right here, right? It doesn't have to be something that I carry around in my awareness or anything like that. But when it comes up, it comes out, because I never know who's going to need to hear a particular story. And so the same thing is true for you. Don't let somebody tell you, and a number of people who have been told, oh, you only got 6 months to live, right? What does that do? What does that do? Especially if you give it some belief, some authority, especially if the doctor has got to be right. Come on, right? What happened to you in this scenario? That's one of the things, if nothing else, if you don't get anything else out of what I'm talking about, I want you to realize your inherent power. You are powerful beyond your imagination, right? And so when you have the ability to step into that knowingness, you will experience a whole nother, just a whole nother experience. It'll just be so much better, so much. Woo, I tell you. Okay, so I'm always like running up to where it is that I need to stop. So if one believes healing painful memories and releasing authority that they have in when life can happen rapidly, it can happen rapidly. If you do, what I was asking you to do yesterday about popping yourself with the rubber band every time you start catching yourself floating back into the past, floating back into things that have no, if you need to condition yourself, condition yourself. But sometimes we can just make a decision like that. And that decision be final. That decision be like, okay, I'm making an about face from this forward march. I'm not there anymore, right? And so that you have the ability to do as well, because you are so powerful, right? The length of healing processes become calibrated to the time that the tribal mind attributes to them. So if your tribe tells you something, meaning, the family structure that you're born into, your church, whoever it is that is in your, what's that other thing that person called it? Your circle of influence, I'll just say, your soul circle, whatever it is, who is ever in your soul circle, the way that they deal with time also has an impact because it rubs off on you. So, somebody will be like, no way that happened to you in 4 days, or no way that this is, like you met a person, and 2 weeks later you were married, right? No way. But I've heard people who say that the moment they met their person, they knew. It was like, you know what? I met that person. And he says, I literally knew that in that moment of meeting her, my life was changed, right? His whole everything was changed. And as far as I know, they still married today, right? But and so does it take you 2 years? Does it take you 5 years to find? No, right? When it's right. And sometimes what you also know is when it's right now, right? When it's temporary. When, oh, I got to feel this out and see, right? There is a different feeling about it. Oh my gosh. Yes. So, for instance, it says the group mind currently believes that certain cancers take 6 months to kill us, right? Or at the time she was talking about AIDS can live 6 to 8 years, or a grieving mate requires at least a year, or grieving your child's death, even longer than that, if ever, right? And so she says that if you believe these assessments, we give tribal mind power over our lives instead of exercising our personal power. So here's what sometimes what happens too is that we stay stuck in a certain way of thinking because we don't want to challenge or go up against that way of thinking, like, oh, I couldn't possibly be over this already, right? Or we, and whatever that may be, whatever it could be. If say for instance, when I lost my mother, right, there is this thing of, oh, let me put on a sad face and let me keep the sad face on because oh, otherwise I might be viewed as being insensitive or something. But you know what, I sat there with my mother every day through this trial with cancer. I sat there by her bed. I did my goodbyes. I did the grieving work. I did all of the work that was necessary. And so when I'm ready to put down that rock, when I'm ready to put down that, who are you? Who is somebody else to tell me, oh, you can't possibly be okay by now? Right? Yeah, because that is just that's the way that people work, though. That's the way that people want to keep you in check. They want to keep you in line. They want to tell you how to think, how to act, all of that stuff. We have y'all, that gives up your power when you get stuck in that stuff. um so I'm going to tell y'all this quick story, and then I'm gonna get off of here. This is a story that she conveys on in the book. She talked about a woman named Margaret who was in a workshop that she gave, and she said that her parents and her upbringing was plain, ordinary, and strict. She said that her parents screened everything to determine, from determining who her friends could be, to what functions she was allowed to attend, what TV programs she could watch, everything. If it was too radical, she could not do it. She didn't stray out of a certain type of way of being. So she grew up with a life that was totally controlled and measured. And she says her parents told her that she had a choice of two occupations that were open to her. You can either be a teacher or you could be a nurse, but nothing else. So she says Margaret decided to become a nurse, and graduated from nursing school. And then she said that she also married a man that was just like her parents, plain, ordinary, and strict. It was a duplicate of what she had been through. They moved to a small town, and Margaret was practicing home care nursing. And there was this one woman in this town who was just ostracized, right? Where people used to talk about her, whisper about her, nobody would associate with her, all of these other things. And she was considered a dangerous woman. You know how we get those labels, people label you, whatever. And so she was never invited to social events. If she showed up someplace, people wouldn't talk to her. It was just like she was just and then the kids would pick on her, right? We had a woman in my neighborhood where I grew up at. I just now thought about her. We used to, as kids, call her Witchy Poo. She stayed in this house, and she walked everywhere, and she had a crooked nose, and yeah, we called her Witchy Poo. And the kids were really mean to her. As a matter of fact, I remember one time somebody threw a rock at her and hit her. And we all scattered and ran. And I remember her following that girl like she was going to follow her home. And I don't know whatever became of Witchy Poo, but that's what that made me think of. And I bless her. I bless her soul. I don't even know what happened to her, but that's painful to remember. Anyway, so they would tease this woman all the time. And anyway, what the day came when this woman called the home care nursing office requesting assistance, and everybody in the office refused to help her except for this woman, Margaret. And Margaret said that she went to this woman's house because she was like, I didn't grow up in this town, and I don't know what she could possibly have that is so terrible. But, if she needs nursing care, I'm going to go and care for her. And so she says that what she found was a lonely, harmless 50-year-old woman starved for affection. She was only 50, right? And needed nursing care. And so the things in our life can really impact our health, which, a lot of times we age because mentally here we believe we're supposed to. Sometimes it is the things that we do, the activities of our lives. Sometimes it is things that we're exposed to, all of those things. But it's mostly up here in our heads. And if you believe that you are supposed to age, if you believe that 50 looks a certain way, then that will be how you will maneuver yourself. Sometimes you got to start. Oh, and you know what, they did this study too of time and its effect on people. Like, remember when the guys were stuck down in, was it in Ecuador or Peru, when they were stuck down in that mining shaft for that particular period of time? And people have reported similar stories where people tend to survive better when they don't have a concept of time that tells them about the process. And so if people are down and they're stuck someplace and they have no reference of how long time passes or all of that stuff, then you don't have in your the perception, oh man, we can only last down in this hole for 20 hours before the oxygen goes out. If you don't have somebody sitting up there with the clocks, looking at the clock saying, okay, we at hour number 18, and so y'all, we gonna start feeling the effects of having no oxygen. Sometimes it is all in what you believe. Because you believe a particular thing, then that thing will have authority and effect over you. But once you take away that awareness, then so too does that idea that somehow you are going to be diminished, or that this forward decline or this downward decline is going to happen in a particular time. I'm telling people, I'm getting better. I'm getting like, better. I don't know about you, but yeah. So this woman was only 50 years old. She needed home care. And so they developed a good friendship, and she found out why this woman was so ostracized in this town. It was because, as a child, she was able to heal people. And this healing ability, at first, while everybody in the town was like, oh my gosh, taking everybody to her to be healed and all of that stuff, after a while, it turned against her, and then people turned against her. And then so many people turned against her and developed all these rumors and bad ideas about it. They assumed the ideas about why they didn't like her sort of disappeared, and they just knew that they didn't like her. They just knew that they were ostracizing her. And so this compounded thing over the years just kept, weighed down on her. And she never, like, well, did she leave at some point? Whatever the case may be, that was the situation that she found herself in. And so now she was being cared for by this woman. So the woman's husband told her, forbade her after a while, especially after she was getting close. Her husband forbid her from going over there, but she was like, you know what, bye boy, I'm going over there anyway. And so she kept working with the woman. And then when her husband got sick, she was like, she goes and she asked this woman, do you think that somehow we could, heal him, or see if somehow we can figure out what it was that you did when you was younger to do this healing work so you could do it again. And when she healed this woman's husband, all of a sudden her husband and her became this woman's closest friend and advocate. And this woman ended up moving in with Margaret and her husband and spent the rest of her days with them. So she was never alone again. And so this is one of those things, one of those stories about, these ideas and these concepts around time, the weight that time can have on you, as well as how we can free ourselves from that. So, I don't know. I'm going to look over this. I might have missed some stuff that I needed to talk to you about time about, but I think that I might have gotten most of what I was supposed to do with time into the time that we had. And if not, then I'm sure that I will bring it up later. I want to say that we don't see people as they are. We see them as we are, right? And so a lot of times from the perspective that we take, that's the way that we are right? We are characterizing, we're judging people. It's our own stuff, right? It's not theirs. And so we got to watch what our thoughts are, because what happens is that um the judgments that we cast onto other people, we experience ourselves. It's like this boomerang effect. So we got to watch what it is that we are thinking about, what it is that we're saying, what we're putting out there into the world. Y'all, you are so much more powerful than even you know. I love that, because what it does is, hopefully, if you accept that and embrace it, it opens you up to more possibilities of what can happen for you in your life, right? It doesn't have to be what you believed. It doesn't have to be that. It could be so much greater. But if you never challenge it, if you never think about the things that you think about, then they just stay the same. But we've got to begin to question what it is that we believe. And through the questioning what we believe, then we open ourselves up to more possibility. So tomorrow I get to talk to you about, God willing and the creek don't rise, I get to talk to you about self-esteem and intuition. And I think that this is a powerful piece, because a lot of times we don't even, our intuition is so like marginalized, put down, ignored, all of those things, that we don't even get into it. So when we start talking about intuition and allowing everything to speak to and through us, I hope it opens up. I trust that it will open up something wonderful for you. So with that, I am going to let you guys go, because I have to be, no, I get to be back here at 1 o'clock to do my church service. And yeah, and so I'm excited about that too. And we'll see how that unfolds within me between now and 1 o'clock. So I love you. I adore you. I thank you for being here. All of that wonderful stuff. Yay. It looks like we're going to have a beautiful sunshiny day. So I wish you all the best. Come back and see me at 1 o'clock. I'll be right here on my page, and it'll be something hopefully that'll just set your soul on fire. I don't even know that that's my goal half the time, but sometimes it's just one new thought, one new idea that just opens you up. So I love you, I adore you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Oh no, at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock. That's Eastern Standard Time, 1 o'clock. All right, see ya.